The old double
Just
record.
why don't they just patch it out? Like, why would you need me to
No, it's
reconfirm?
part
Don't
of
even...
their like lore. Part of the
LORE.
Zoom
Oh,
lore.
it's part of LORE. Like, I thought you were talking about Zoom law,
It's
which
like
I'm
No,
sure
no,
many
no.
people are
Zoom
studying
lore. It's
to
part
become
of
lawyers in.
no,
when
it's
we
like
discuss
Dark
Zoom
Souls. It's
hundreds of
meant
years
to
from
be
now.
hard, like
Yeah.
failures.
That's right.
Is Zoom the Dark Souls of like internet communication?
Yes, yes. Look, when we're
It's
sitting in
their
our
gift
bionic
to
bodies 150 years
podcasters.
from now, we're gonna remember Zoom
Yeah,
because
they're
of
gonna.
it.
It's gonna seem really quaint. It really will, though. Like when we can just zoom in, like through our eyeballs, and just like
Yeah,
stick something
Yeah.
on and have it
no one's gonna talk about
ARG,
Google
and
Meets.
Matan will be sitting right there in front of me, and I can just be able to talk to him.
Just vividly hallucinate everyone in the room.
Welcome to Prose and Cons, a podcast by writers for writers, brought to you by Precipice Fiction. Precipice Fiction would like to acknowledge the people of the Eora and Durag nations as the original custodians and storytellers of the land this podcast was created on.
Welcome, listeners. We are Pros and Cons, because sometimes we feel like pros and sometimes we feel like cons, and sometimes we feel like hosting a Full House 100th podcast episode.
Hey,
We made it. We made it.
Celebration
We
noises.
made it.
For those watching it on the YouTube, where you have visual capacity as opposed to the audio only capacity, all six of us are here. Paddy, Alex, Matan, I nearly said Jose, Phoenix,
I'll change my
and James.
Imagine a
That's
listener
my
going like,
wife's
"Who the
name.
hell is Jose?"
Jose, yeah, no,
Seventh member.
as a part of
For
the
those
new
putting
season,
together
we've just
the-
recast Phoenix, and we're not gonna
Mid-season.
Just sub him in without saying anything.
Yeah.
Of course, Jose, who's always been here the
Who's
whole
been
time.
here? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
She's
Running that in.
she's the phantom member. Yes, that's my wife's name for those following along at home.
So what you are all listening to, dear listeners, is our 100th episode, and it is a special occasion that we've all, despite distances and time zones, carved out the time to make it possible for all six of us to be here. I think those in Sydney, it is now a 6 p.m. evening, while I think our European folk are up at alarming hours to make this work. It's going to be a very relaxed episode today, because we wanted to pitch this as, for those who have been listening since the very beginning, we had a Meet the Writing Group episode where essentially just we talked about Precipice fiction lore, how we came to be, how we met, and we wanted to mark the occasion of our 100th episode as a where are we now? And I was alarmed to look up and realize we probably would have recorded that Meet the Writing Group episode almost 3 years ago.
Wow.
That's so
Almost
weird. That
3
doesn't
years.
feel right. That feels so
way.
strange.
That's
3
hectic.
years.
So I am going to ask everyone.
What have we done?
Yes,
Where's the time gone?
What have I done with my life these 3 years? We'll be reflecting on what we have done in 3 years, for good or ill. And I think listeners, what to get out of today's episode is, I think there's a celebration in longevity and in this crazy hard career that is, sticking at being a creative writer and making this career work. If we're able to share some insights into how we've evolved in be able to keep going, sharing those insights, what we're doing, and it's going to be painful because I did this exercise to myself this morning, but I reflected on what I've done the past 3 years. I felt bad about it, but then it was also clarifying as I set goals for the future. So I'm going to share that same agony with my fellow Precipice as I ask them to reflect, agonize, and set goals for the future. But otherwise, we're going to take it fairly easy.
Ali, are we still going to do the what are we watching and reading, or are we going to skip that?
I think we might break code, break tradition, and not do
Oh
that.
my God.
Right on.
Because otherwise we're gonna talk all day, and
Yeah.
our listeners are just gonna hear Yeah, you're gonna have to tune in next episode to hear what we've been watching.
What if we did like a quick roundabout and we just said what we're reading and watching, but we didn't say anything about
Just
it.
one
We just said
word.
it.
Oh,
Just this is
Okay.
what I'm doing.
All
I think
right.
it'll feel kind of bad, but I like
no,
that.
no, I like that because I really want to say it.
You just want to say
Okay.
one
It makes me
word.
feel very
No
literary.
context, right? Right.
All right, round robin. Here we go. Paddy.
Master and Commander by Patrick O'Brien. See, I told you it sounded literary.
Right on.
Alex.
Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. Love that name.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
great.
Matan.
Dubliners by James Joyce.
Ooh, yeah,
Ooh, that's
taste.
more literary than mine.
Good work.
Phoenix.
Pokemon Shield by Nintendo.
Yes.
You suggested it. You didn't want to explain.
Uh,
You didn't want to explain Phoenix. That's why you wanted it.
Or Game Freak.
I love the hesitation as well.
I was so excited to say it.
Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan.
And I'll say Arcane by Netflix.
Nice.
Oh, hell
Second
yeah.
season,
Me
baby.
too.
I
Season
don't know what
2.
that is. I don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is? Are you
Well, we're not going to talk about it though, so
Okay,
I'll just have to
Yeah,
remain-
not allowed.
I'll never know.
The
just
rules,
trying to work
Ellie.
out if you're
Yeah.
being facetious or
No,
genuine?
I don't know. I don't know.
Paddy,
Alright.
catch me in the parking lot. I'll explain.
This fighting
All right,
words.
perfect. You'll have to tune in a fortnight, listeners, then, as we unpack and hear our thoughts and critiques on everything we're reading, watching, and listening. I will just set the scene. So I thought it was actually quite charming how much we were all looking forward to doing a full house. And I thought it was like we're in the group chat, like working out the time in which we can all make it. And we're like, oh, it's been so long. There's been instances where we've been ships passing in the night before we could catch each other. And look, I thought it is important and worth celebrating the longevity of this. Because I know that I've been part of other writing groups that I know have not quite survived the test of time, or even the fact that I feel I've outgrown them. And that's nothing to the people in those groups who I love and respect, but there's something about, say, the growth at which I'm either holding myself to and which I want to achieve and move on to the next thing. And there's something quite lovely about finding a group of people who I feel like have a similar, growth at which they're holding themselves to.
Yeah. And I've thought before, like, how lucky it is that honestly, all of us are really talented writers. It could have been that one of us or one or two of us are actually like, ooh,
All of us?
We don't talk
but
about
Bobby's
that.
not great. We need to talk about Bobby. But we're all actually really talented and at similar places in our writing journey. And
That
just, like,
alternate timeline. Every meeting.
so glad that never happened.
I mean, nobody tell Paddy, but yeah, we'll keep it in mind.
Imagine finding out you're the one.
If you don't know who the one is in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, God. No, you're right. We are all very good.
No, but my very Slytherin take on it, and I'd love for someone else to come in and say this in a nicer way, but in terms of just, I wouldn't waste my time with people who I didn't think made me better as a writer and as a person. Like in life, you always want to be surrounding yourself with people. I'm like, oh, they're good for me because they're making me better in this way. And you are all writers who I feel like will hold my writing to a standard, and the way I talk about writing to a standard. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's also exciting as we head into Anthology 2, in that I know I'm writing a real shit first draft at the minute.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
You and me
actually-
both.
They're in the club.
But I know there's a safety net there. I feel quite okay being able to show this hunk of shit to all of you, because I know, well, one, you'll be relatively kind to it, but then you will hold it to the standard that where I will ultimately want it to be and help me get it there. And that's a lovely safety net.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about showing my first draft. I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm committed to showing you guys, but it's rough. It's
no
it's
backing
real
out.
rough.
Yeah.
No, I know,
we're all
but it's
the
even
same.
like it's kind of to the point of like where there's some insert dialogue here thrown around in there.
That's all right. That's
But
okay.
it is what
I
it
gotta
is.
say, I feel like it's a it's the way I feel about you guys as editors. It goes both ways. On the one hand, I really feel like Ali that I feel super comfortable giving something to you guys because I know you won't hurt my feelings, but you also won't let me, get to the finish line with something that isn't up to standard.
Yeah.
But on the other side, because of our long-standing relationship, I also feel the need to like impress you guys, if that makes sense. So on the one hand, I don't want to give you. I feel good giving you crap, but I also don't want to give you crap. I'm kind of having a crisis of identity, like how. But you get the point. It goes both ways.
No, I'm there too.
Yeah.
This
we
is
explained
just like this is just like Pokemon Shield.
I just want to talk about it. You do want to talk about it. You do want to.
No, I'll leave it there.
Have
I'll leave
we
it there.
explained what this
But-
is for yet? I don't know that we actually.
Anthology
have.
Pokemon
2.
Shield or
Anthology 2. Okay, we have. I should
Oh,
pay more
sorry.
attention.
No, but okay. While we're talking about it, and it's something we need to talk about in our team meeting anyway, but would anyone like to share where they're currently at with their Anthology 2 story, how they're feeling about it, and kind of, what our timeline is for this next project?
I'll share. It's a quick share actually. I actually have a solid first draft. Like
That's
it's
amazing.
fairly. It came out really
Yeah,
nice.
that's
I really
like,
held my. Thank you. It came out really nice, but I also held myself to it of like setting times to write and really like getting through to the end, which felt really nice. It's a solid little novella. Like it's at 13K words, and
Nice.
I read through it again, and I was actually like, I'm happy to like. I feel like I've done what I can for this. I'm ready to give it to other people to have them help me do more to it. But it feels very nice.
That's amazing. Gold
Yeah.
Star Phoenix
Yeah, nice
for
work.
completing the group
Thank you.
project.
Oh,
Yes.
Very cool.
I don't know if you noticed, but when you asked the question, I leaned back in my chair.
You ran away.
With that Zoom background, if you lean back far enough, you will actually disappear.
I was
So
back
you
behind
could
the
just
bridge.
fade out.
Matan, how's
Homer
your writing
Simpson
going?
into the Zoom background.
How's my writing going?
Yes.
It went fantastic for about 5,000 words. And then I kind of took a break to work on other stuff. But I am slowly getting back to it. But the thing is, I'm really excited about this story because it's still Matan, but it's very different than anything I've written seriously before.
New Matan.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
Your new
I think
era.
it still has a lot of my elements because that's kind of involuntary. But I'm actively trying to write a genre that I've never tried to write. But I did enjoy to read. Yeah, not gonna spoil it, but I'm really looking forward to see what that comes out like.
You're not going to tell us the genre?
I mean, you're gonna see it.
Come on.
I think Matan's
Cool.
sitting on some secrets that he wants to be like first reader response.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
like a cold
Ryan
open.
Gandalf?
I wanna.
Nice. Yeah, we'll read it like it's right out of the slush pile.
Yeah, but like not the slash pile that has to wait 12 months for you to return to. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, it might just get a look over and be like, nah. Well, mine is. Can we? Yeah, you sort of brought it up, Matan, but can we talk about how you get like X number of words or X percentage of story or novella or book or whatever it is, like grace, and then it's like at some point you kind of feel the rubber hit the road, and you're like, okay, I have to kind of grind now. And I think it is a ratio thing because I'm currently writing a book thing now, like that's kind of what my focus has been on because I've done a significant portion of the story, and it doesn't matter what it is, you get like X number of words or X percentage. Like if it's a book, you get like 15,000 words, just like free and clear.
Free.
Free, yeah, exactly. And you really have to
On the
ride
house.
that. So having said that, the story I did, which is it's probably at about 11,000 words, but I just don't really know how to stick the landing, and I feel like I probably might have to go back and really change up some of the early things to make it work. And it's the second attempt at a story. Like I did one first, so yeah, I don't know. That's going to be interesting trying to go through that.
It might just be a case of like you bring it to other people, you let other people read it, and like it's obvious what should happen. Like we might read and be
True.
like, oh yeah, obviously this is going there.
Yeah, maybe.
You might never have seen that. So I don't know, maybe give it to us before you go and rework it completely.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely true. Well, I'll try and do some sort of denouement for it first, just to so it does complete. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's it definitely doesn't lean on the spec spec fic right now, but that's okay. We'll see what happens.
You're like, I've just written outside the brief. I'm not even writing spec.
I'm actually just doing handprints on the page and just sort of stacked.
I am submitting an artistic dance as my.
That's right. Find it at this link on YouTube.
1 out of 6 ain't
Enjoy.
bad.
Scan the QR code. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, that's my way of saying
throat singing.
it's fine. Yeah, exactly. How long?
Speaking of, Paddy, how's your writing going?
Yeah, so I'm really out of practice, as it turns out. I haven't done nearly enough writing since my novel went on the back burner for reasons we might get into later. It's been really good getting back into it, but I was saying to you before we started this call, Ali, that my muscles are really weak. I feel like someone that used to marathon run, and now I'm marathon running, and halfway through the race, I'm having mild cardiac arrest. I will make it, but it may kill me. It's going good. The first draft is going to suck, but I'm going to give myself permission for it to really suck. Which is
Nice.
I'm a real perfectionist and overwriter, so that's difficult for me. But I'm going to make myself do it, and please be gentle with it when you come across it.
I think that's going to be great then, especially as like someone who really likes to nail it before they send it out. I think it'll be very like might open some pathways to not do that. And try
I
a
think
different
so.
process.
Yeah, it's something I mean, Alex, like you're so good at just like writing and just like having it done and not giving too much of a crap the first time. You are.
You don't care what you look like, Alex. I love that about you.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can see how someone would take that not as a compliment, but I understand that it is.
You know,
I know exactly.
Wow, Alex, you're so terrible at editing.
No, I'm trying to be more like you.
I know exactly what you mean.
Wait, Paddy, I just want to make a comment about your contribution to the last anthology, which I thought was terrific. But something interesting about it is that I believe your story kind of existed before the anthology was even a thing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't done, but it was like a crystallized idea and maybe even a draft available. And then you kind of took it, and your process was really taking something that exists and polishing the shit out of it.
Yeah, so I got out easy.
No, I think it was great, but like you came and that was your process. Like, I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to perfect it. Whereas, like, I think me and who else wrote something from scratch? Phoenix, me and you started like from a blank page, right? Completely and Ali, right?
Existing world, but blank page story. Yeah.
Alex and James, similar to Paddy. Like, you had the idea for a while, right before the anthology.
That was actually the first thing I'd ever written like that. Really seriously in terms of fiction.
You sent it to me, right?
Yeah,
before
I did. I was pretty proud of it before the anthology.
And you gave it to me, right?
Yeah. So it was very much the same as Paddy, where it's
Cafe
like
Newtown.
that we were like polishing up, and I took it to you guys, and you guys were well, like, this is pretty good, but like here's all the things you could do to make it better, and it did make it better, which is great. It's the advantage of having good editors and friends.
And James, how's your current writing on this project going?
Yeah, it's kind of stop and start, I guess. I'm at a place where I'm about 8,000 or 9,000 words, and we're probably at like second or third draft because I keep going back and changing things, and I still haven't written a third act. So I tend to try to want to get the first two bits pretty solid. And I keep saying, like, yeah, I know the third act will be fine. Once I get these two bits solid, then I'll know. So I'm having a bit of I'm wondering, like, will I stick the landing when I eventually go into it? Is it still going to work?
You pantsers are crazy.
Sorry, yeah.
It's wild.
Makes me uncomfortable, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Jump off the cliff and grow
I'm
wings
sitting
on the
here
way down.
sweating, like, he's doing what?
Again, James, like what I said to Alex, maybe just show us the first two and then see what we say.
Well, I think I said it before in a recent podcast that we were on, that I say, like, you don't know what the beginning should be until you've written the end. So I kind of feel like
that's pretty wise.
Probably, definitely, like, it would help to have people read it, but I also feel like it needs to just be better before. I feel like it would be a waste of time to show it to anyone at this point because it's still very rough. And I hadn't touched it in the last couple of weeks, but I recently went to see Gladiator 2, and I'm feeling way better about my story now.
No, that was a fun movie.
Wait, guys, don't burn bridges. Ridley Scott, if you're listening, I would love to work with you on Gladiator 3. Okay, we're not.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah. definitely enjoyed
I'm
seeing.
just
like,
now.
Raid 2.
I did not realize it existed. Is this in theaters?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
I saw it in
Oh,
IMAX.
how
Actually,
fun!
it's great.
Ridley Scott, I'll see your movie. Don't worry.
Ridley Scott's going to feel very validated from that.
Oh yeah, he's been waiting for our review.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Hanging out.
And for context for the listeners, my story is it's also a gladiator story. So I was kind of, there were certain things that I was struggling with, and I was like, oh, how do you do this and how do you approach this? And I went to see Gladiator, and they just didn't bother with any of that. And I'm like, oh,
Character development.
that's cool.
Yeah, just get Denzel Washington to do his Denzel Washington thing for about a third of the movie. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I guess.
Right. He was the
Best
best
part of the
that
film,
whole
yeah.
movie.
He was. He was.
James, I think this should be a regular segment of our podcast of you just using other movies and books to feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
Like I watched The Conjuring 2 yesterday. Now I feel good about my horror.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like your characters
That
are
is-
underdeveloped? Here's a list of films you could watch. Go easy on yourself.
Self-affirming reads and watches.
Oh my word.
Off of what Ellie was saying before about just like you're saying how, or mixture of Ellie and Paddy about how we are all talented writers and I feel good being part of this group. I am genuinely very excited for your story, James, because I know you are a good writer and I know you're doing the due diligence of the research on this. So I know like, ooh, I'm going to get to explore a cool gladiator world and like actually dive into this. And I know it's going to be like a worthwhile experience. So that feels very genuinely cool.
Yeah.
So
And if,
great.
I'm very
Thank you.
excited.
and if you don't have a little bit of self-doubt about yourself as a writer, I think that's a bad sign.
How do you
Yeah.
improve?
Probably
How do you
Yeah.
improve?
True.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to be like, this might be really shit, because then
Yes,
at least
yeah.
you have the impetus to improve and to seek ways to make it better.
Mm.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, living under the knowledge of crippling self-doubt. Welcome to being a writer.
You almost make it sound fun.
Embrace
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
At the
embrace
risk
it.
of like continuing to like suck each other's it was that's what I like about this group.
Ellie!
Sorry, apologies. We can cut that if we
This is a family show, I think.
Let's make sure we have the explicit tag on this one.
Yeah,
like
there goes
three
the
times.
M15 rating.
just so people aren't tuning in and being like, wow, they all really love each other. No, but
Oh,
I tell my class to listen to this.
we can bleep it. We can still bleep it.
Yeah, we can.
My students
Ooh.
actually found out about the podcast. Apparently, it's a thing to Google your teacher,
amazing.
Okay, that's a little creepy.
Why didn't you
but they
show it them already?
weren't. But they couldn't be bothered to actually listen to it. They just
course
like
they're not.
found
They're
it. And
teenagers.
that
They
was
just
the
know it
achievement for them.
exists.
Yeah, that's it.
pushing this on
Play a
those early
snippet.
minds all the time?
Yeah.
Well, we're stepping into an R rating now, so maybe that'll
Yeah.
get the younger audience.
I wasn't suggesting we actually do it. I was just saying that the spirit of celebrating how good and how much we like each other. I'm glad that no one here is overtly like, oh, I'm great, because that kind of person is hard to work with. Anyway,
yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
step back
yeah.
from that now.
And you'd know, Ali, from your experience of I mean, like from your experience working in film, right?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
I'm sure
oh,
that's filled with people like that, right?
yes, in every dimension we've just
Yeah.
outlined. Yes.
Writers are a little more self-effacing by nature, I think.
Yeah, but then there's also the ones that really frustrate me, and I come across this. Maybe it is more screenwriting than novels, but there is a culture of I've done 2 drafts and it's done, and like we all have the itch of when we want to chase the shiny new idea. Oh, I'm going to go write that now. But I think we also still have a healthy relationship with our olds. We're like, well, no, this one also needs to keep going, and I'll find the time to chase the shiny. But there is a lot of like, oh, that one's done, and I'll just like genuinely believe it's done when it's very clearly not, and they've chased the shiny, they're onto the new thing, and just refusing to take notes on the thing that still needs notes. So people that have a healthy appreciation for the culture of note taking, being able to take notes, being able to give notes, it's I think it's undervalued how crucial that is actually to a writing career.
Yeah.
Just-
I think, I mean, I know personally I'm just not very good at writing endings because I think that's kind of the nature of pantsing, just by its nature. So I know that I'll always go to specifically my partner Liz and be like, what what's going on at the end? And she'll be like, oh, well, you should do this. And I'll be like, oh. And it'll be right. It'll be almost always be right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you, I think if you have the strength of character to be like, this thing I'm not very good at, like this specific bit is just not me, and I could probably work to make it better. But if there's someone who can already do that themselves in the form of an editor or just a good friend who's like, hey, I've got an idea for this, that will save you a lot of time and heartache, and probably a lot of like toxic self-delusion as well. So yeah, that's really important, I feel, as a writer.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I guess sharing about where my own writing is up to, I do have 10K words. I don't think they're very coherent, though. I'm still passionate about the idea, which I think is good. So I'm not burning myself out on the idea. It's just like I'm putting words down, and I think I'm facing that fun thing of, I know it can be here if I can pull off the idea I'm aiming for, but currently the words I'm outputting of like a quality down.
Same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
I can see how steep that hill is, and I'm like, holy shit.
Grasp.
But it'll be fun to try and get there. I still think there's maybe 5 more K until this story's done, so it's probably going to be about 16K. It doesn't need to be that long. I'd love to bring it down. Why not? But I tried writing just yesterday, actually, and as I was saying to Paddy, it feels like I've forgotten how to write. I'm in the middle of a burnout patch at the minute, just with every aspect of my life, and I'm like, for funsies, even though I know this isn't going to go well, I'm going to try writing because I have a spare hour or so here. Yeah. And I'm just like pushing buttons on a keyboard, and I'm like, well, what's writing?
That's building the muscle back up, right? Like it sucks when you get back
really
into
is.
it, but then
it
before you know it.
It was like fundamentally worse that I've experienced in a really long time. But as you said, that's almost the muscles atrophied, and I've had to build it up enough times. I'm familiar with that. I have trust that the muscle will come back. I'm just recognizing that it is the weakest it's been in a really long time, because I've been doing a lot of editing. I've been doing a lot of Bible writing, which is essentially like writing synopses, but a 40-page synopsis. So for me, that's not a creative muscle. That's not writing. I've been just editing those kinds of documents to death. So sitting down, trying to put first draft words towards this story. I'm just, I got to 100 words, and I'm like, literally better than nothing, maybe. But
yeah, no, definitely. Generative writing is its own whole thing. When generative writing is good, when you're in the zone, to me, this is an exaggeration. It literally feels like I'm reading. It's the same. It's the same experience. You're the same speed, or maybe a little slower. I don't know, but you feel the same. You're like, oh, I wonder. And this is a bit different for pantsers as it is for planters.
I was gonna say it sounds like a pantser thing.
Yeah, it is. But you literally feel like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen in the story. I can't wait to get back to writing so I can find out what happens in my own story.
Oh God, this sounds beautiful and innocent, and I wish.
But when it's bad, it's like, who are these people? Why did you do that? Like, what do you want? Where is this going? Who are you? Like, it's just very frustrating. And like you just kind of ride those bumps, those waves, I think. And again, totally different sort of thing. Even I will have a general plan of where it's going to go, but there's a big old patch of like dirt road from here to where the final destination is that might be kind of a swamp or something. So
good imagery, Alex.
Thank you. I'm actually a writer.
Writing.
Who's like the hybrid of this group? Do we have a hybrid?
That's a good question.
I'm kind of a hybrid.
I consider
hybriding it
myself
up right now.
Yeah, I do try and plan.
Hybrid.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I think a lot of people
James.
consider themselves hybrids, but then they're not.
Okay.
On
the spectrum of pantsing, I think I'm probably the furthest pants. And on the spectrum of planning,
pants.
And most
You're
pants.
mega
Yeah,
pants.
Alex, most pants. And Ali is probably most planned. Is that fair? I think that's
Yeah.
I think it is fair.
Matan, you and I in a fight. Who plans more?
No, you're better than me. Because you're the architect of like 7 different plans at the same time, and I'm like a planner of 1.
Well, I was about to say, I do experience what Alex is talking about. I know it happens for me in a lot of dialogue scenes.
Yeah.
Because, like, say my note to self in my plan is, then they talk about this. that's the extent of my note. And then I've actually got to write the page or so that is that conversation. They're just saying stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm just recording what they're saying. I have no.
And does it go off
Yeah.
book sometimes, and they'll go and you'll be like, oh,
Yeah, then they'll say some weird stuff, and then I'm like, well, I've got to follow that. That's
Yeah, right,
interesting.
okay.
Like, so that's where the undiscoverable, that's not the word, the to be discovered stuff is.
Yeah, the discovery writer stuff. That's like the fancy way of saying.
Yeah,
It.
it's in the chatter, what the characters end up wanting to
That's
talk about.
interesting.
But I'm attempting a lot of new things with this, the Precipice project. One, I guess that's just my habit of keeping myself engaged. I always like, if there's an opportunity, I'm like, I will use this to try something I haven't done before.
Yeah, cool.
I am writing in fantasy, so that's familiar, but I'm using third person present, which I think is actually, at least it's been a very long time since I've written third person present. And then halfway through, just to give you a sense of how messed up my first draft is, I've decided to have a crack at indirect speech, so free and indirect speech. So half of the draft is in quotation marks, and then the second half is in free and direct speech. And maybe I'll get to the end and decide which one I think is working better. But maybe I'm terrible at writing free and indirect speech, so then I'll go back and write like a normal
Can you
person.
just give us a description for the listeners? And
Sure.
definitely not for me,
As well-
of what free and
As
direct
well as
speech
for
is.
me.
Yeah.
I definitely
It's
know
not
what
the
that
same
means.
as indirect speech, right?
But so say
people's
we're
phrase.
really used to a character is using dialogue, so we have the quote, it's in quote, close the quote,
Yep.
they said.
Yeah.
But then and then free and indirect speech is not using quotes or they said. It's the dialogue is meant to effortlessly be part of the sentence. And you should be able to work
yeah,
out
yeah.
who's saying what, but you're removing the quotation marks, and it's just that's
Well,
how the
McCarthy does
prose
it, right?
flow.
Like she told him that he's a loser and he needs to leave, basically.
Yeah, but it can even be more.
Oh, yeah.
You are a loser. She picked up the kettle, and but it's just meant to like flow.
Wow.
And it's just meant.
That's crazy.
There are writers who have pulled this off, and it works quite well. I am likely not one of them, but I'm using this as an opportunity.
Is that a Cormac McCarthy thing?
Yes,
Someone
yeah.
correct
Cormac
me here.
McCarthy
Yeah. I
hates
was gonna say.
quotation marks. He uses as few symbols that are not A to Z as possible. Very, very well.
Saying that, though, the reason I've decided to do that is, this is so silly. I have no idea if I'm going to pull this off. But
You can just go and add quotation marks later. I mean,
well,
this is...
yeah, because I'm writing about music, I want to go and use some music notation
cool.
instead of punctuation.
That's gonna make the audiobook real hard.
It is. I'm not thinking of the audiobook. But
I
as
like how that's what Paddy's worried about.
Well,
You're already thinking to the
Logistics.
practical
Well,
side.
yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, Ali? Anyway, that is like an experimental, bizarre thing for me
That's cool.
that I'm considering. Don't know if it's going to work. You are the 5 people who will be like, Ali, stop. Stop. And I will listen.
Down.
But at least for now, I'm having fun with that maybe being something I'm
That's
trying.
cool. Yeah, you should try it.
Mhm.
You should try something weird.
Try, fail, and then try again. That's the Precipice motto.
And a character's going to be singing the lines? Is that the
No,
idea?
no, but
Or
just
is-
like
It's a musical.
I was
say
thinking, okay.
on music score, there's like a pause. There's a symbol that means
A
pause.
themata.
So yeah, so instead of using full stop or a comma, I would use the music symbol for pause. And I just want to have a crack at using that as different punctuation. I don't know. Who knows? Could be a nightmare.
I know we're not supposed to appreciate each other too much, but I would totally write a musical with you guys. Yeah. Would be kick-ass.
Matan.
We have enough music people to do it. Oh no, let's not give ourselves more work.
I see Nate just popping his head around the corner saying, like,
I've got a lot to keep him away from that idea. All right. Well, okay. That's wonderful. I hope everyone at home is like, oh, I'm so excited for Precipice Fiction now to work on their second anthology. If you haven't bought our first anthology, go buy that. And then get super hyped for the quality of how amazing our next anthology is going to be. Not yet named, obviously, not yet written. It's still in its...
It's coming.
Maybe-
It's coming.
Guys, keep
Coming
some of the
soon.
mystery. Maybe it is named. Maybe we're just not revealing the name.
Oh. Yeah, you got to get to Act
Oh.
3.
You don't have to know everything.
Maybe it is completely written. Maybe we're just, playing the game.
And we drop it alongside
Yeah.
this podcast.
That's
Woohoo!
marketing, baby.
We'll pull a Sanderson. It's been ready
Oh.
for months.
In my spare time. Here's another anthology.
Does anyone, just before we move on from this route, does anyone have a name for their individual stories yet?
Yeah.
Does anyone have that
I do.
place?
Back
I got
channel.
nothing.
I do.
Back
Do you want to share
Back
them?
channel.
Back
Back
channel.
channel?
Back channel.
Okay,
Back channels?
cool.
Back channels.
Why is it called back channel? You'll have to read the anthology.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the name.
I'm
I
actually
thought
very
you
proud of
said
the
you're
name,
going to
actually.
tell us in the back channels.
No, that the back channel is also that,
Ah.
but back channel is the name of the story.
All right.
Who else has a name?
Yeah.
Mine is The Direction of Heaven.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Nice.
It's up, right? It's up.
Well,
Diagonal.
Read to find out.
Almost counter to that, I'm probably going to go with We Are Damnati, which kind of means we are the damned, which was
Oh,
Ah.
nice.
I like that.
I love that.
that's a nice little.
was a certain
Oh,
category of
okay.
gladiator that was the worst that you could be.
Oh,
Or
no.
didn't
I love that.
Ooh.
Matan, do you have one in brewing?
I got absolutely nothing. It's literally called Draft. It's inside a folder called Draft. The title is Draft.
I love
That's
that.
all I have.
I love
The
that. for you.
characters all just say draft.
Draft 1, Draft 2.
It's very
Draft T1,
experimental.
Draft T2.
What about you, Alex?
I have nothing. Yeah. I mean, it's like no. There's nothing. I can't even remember
No.
what I've like labeled the file name. So no, I do not.
It's
My working title is A Song for the Bowman.
Yeah, it's good.
That's cool.
Ooh.
It's
That's
a
nice.
pun, but
Ooh.
you won't know the pun. It is
Unprovoked.
because my violinists are like the archers of this city.
Oh,
they are.
yeah, I see.
They're
So
bowmen. Oh, I'm so clever. That's why I'm a writer. Stick
That's
around
so
to
you're
learn
blinking down the
more.
little musical notes, just like.
Yeah. All right, it's now to get into some deep traumatizing psychology. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's let's unpack our past 3 years. So I actually went back and listened to our Meet the Writing Group episode in prep for this, just so I remembered like what we talked about, where we are, and it was so cute. But also devastating for me because I realized the like 3 projects I mentioned 3 years ago are still the 3 projects
Oh no.
I'm working on. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh, no.
But I'll go first. I'll just give our listeners a general overview of kind of what I'm working on. So I guess the biggest milestones for me in the past 3 years is when after we would have done that episode, I've started working at Westwards, and I would have talked about Westwards quite a lot on this podcast. But for me, it has just absolutely opened up my networks and knowledge and understanding of how the publishing industry works. I find it really fulfilling that I am in a position where I can help create programs for emerging writers and help emerging writers connect with the industry. Like all that, I'm just surrounded by emerging writers all day, every day. I'm surrounded by established writers and connecting all the dots. And it's quite wonderful. And I feel like I've learned quite a lot. And it's allowed me opportunities to something I never thought I would enjoy, but I've hosted a lot of like author talks and panels. And it's not dissimilar to this podcast. And I had a moment of reflection that kind of all the work we've done on the podcast has semi-trained that skill, so then I was able to just whip it out of the bag and I had it, like,
Nice.
because we pick an episode topic, something that interests us, and I like how that keeps us like sharp. It keeps me sharp, where I'm like, I want to learn more about this thing. Like the bear and the anxiety episode came out quite recently, and that just came from me being like, I want to understand how they're actually using like anxiety and tension. I want to know more about that. So then we host an episode on it, and it's very similar to interviewing an author as a part of a panel. So I just read their work and I'm like, this bit fascinated me. They're doing this craft thing. So I'm almost kind of like, fuck the audience and whatever they want to hear. I want to talk to this author about this really interesting craft thing they're doing. And I have this public platform to talk to them for an hour about that. So yeah, I like, and I would encourage, it's such an important part of being an emerging writer, being a professional writer, is that's the publicity side of it, right? Being able to talk about writing craft. It's the whole reason we're doing this podcast, to kind of promote our own writing, but it's just getting it out there. It elevates what we're doing, and it's, if you have a work, that's how you publicize it. And it's such a necessary evil of the job, is getting up in front of people and talking about this thing. So I'm really grateful for that. Things that seemed less cool, though, in hindsight, I talked about how I was doing a draft of the yellow wallpaper. I'm still in the middle of yellow wallpaper. Not that I'm drafting it right now, but in about literally a week, I am having a big meeting with the producer and the director, and they're going to go through and tell me everything they hate about it. And I'm going to write all those notes down, and then I'm going to do another draft. So that is endless. In that Meet the Writing Group episode, I talked about how the comic for Metropius was coming. Shortly after that episode was released, the first comic did come out. But then the funny thing happened where we lost our artist just because he moved overseas, and they tried to make it work long distance. It didn't work long distance. So then they had to find a writer. Sorry, not a writer. They've got me. I'm the writer. They had to find a artist who was local, and then literally only just like 2 days ago, I was told the issue 2 is printed. It exists. I'm expecting the copies to arrive on my doorstep any day, and we'll be launching the second goddamn issue of this comic. Will be out before Christmas, and that's really exciting because it's been so long I've forgotten what I wrote. So I'll get to read this comic and be pleasantly surprised with everyone else.
Nice.
And then also the Swallow was kind of the other big project I was talking. I kind of phrased it as, I'm dabbling in a little bit of historical fiction. The past 3 years have been primarily that project. It's been hugely that project has been my focus since that recording. And also a recent revelation. It looks like I'm barreling towards maybe a year from now. November next year will be the release of that one. So that will be
very cool.
Awesome.
Nice that it'll finally exist.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, team. You've all been such a big part of that crazy journey as well. So
Very cool.
That feels like, yeah, that's huge. that's a group effort pushing that one up a boulder. So and yeah, so just reflecting, I did have that oh no moment of, but where's the new? It's just the same thing, but it's 3 years later. And like, obviously, I do feel like I've grown a lot. I feel like a lot of, obviously, I hope my craft has gotten better over this time. But I also think my taste has changed. I think we've talked on previous episodes about how like there's the craft growth and there's the taste grows as well. For me, that's when I kind of know a project is finished, is when the taste like outgrows a project, and then it's able to exist in the time and space I created it, and I can put it down without the need to keep going back to it. But if my taste hasn't outgrown it yet, I'm going to keep wanting to work on it and improve it. So I feel like my taste has been evolving these past 3 years, and in that sense, I think that maybe the next new project I embark on will be quite different. And then it's very funny that I say that, and in hindsight, this novella I'm writing for Precipice Fiction, I'm like, it's insane. I'm not using punctuation. It's probably not going to be any good. So maybe my taste has grown in a bad direction. But yeah, so that came with both the good and the bad. But I am looking forward to Precipice, this novella, being where this kind of next momentum will be for me, as those 3 projects still continue to boil at infinitum in the background for me. And I guess just a small wonderful success that happened in those 3 years was making of the audiobook and having Rupert Degas narrate The Stolen Sword was something I really treasure as a career highlight. And that's very cool that happened. That's very special, and that wouldn't have happened if not for this group. So yeah, that was my 3-year briefest reflection. Who would like to talk about their agonies and their joys?
I'll go. I'll talk about mine. Mine's very different to yours. Mine is very different to yours. I've done less writing. I have done writing, but I've done less writing. And I want to talk about the reason I've done less writing. Do you guys remember, I've been working on this thing Sovereignty for a long time, right? That's a novel I'm working on. I came up with the idea in 2000 and Dickety D. I don't even know. And for a long time, I had really good momentum. I was writing this thing all the time. I moved to New Zealand. Writing went on the back burner a little bit because, moving to another country is a big thing. But when I get back into it, I joined some writing organizations, including the New Zealand Society of Authors. And I decide I'm going to apply for their mentorship. I'm going to apply with sovereignty. And I get it. I get a mentorship, which is really exciting. Like, you send away some of your manuscript and you have a chance to work with an established writer or editor who's like experienced, blah, blah, blah. And they help you get your manuscript into shape, right? Really exciting, really exciting. So someone there, like the committee of wizards, whatever it is, must have decided that this manuscript's really good. So I start working with this editor. I'm not going to say who they are. And it turns out, unfortunately, they really didn't like my book. They really didn't like my book, and they told me that. In fact, like I said, can you give me some positives here that you like about it? And they thought, and they said, not really. That really,
That's fucked up.
really hurt. Now, in retrospect, I don't think it's a pile of crap. Or I don't, because I've had good feedback from people saying, no, this is genuinely good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I managed to get the mentorship in the first place, but for a long time, it was such a...
That'd be devastating.
Yeah, you can know something, but if you don't feel it, I mean, it actually killed my desire to write for a long time. Like, even now, like, thinking about going back to sovereignty, even though, like, it's a long time since, thinking like, I don't really feel like it. It feels like a burden. Ali, I was saying this to you before the podcast started. Like, before, I was writing for hours a day. I was also very lightly employed, which helped. Hours a day. Until recently, I've done next to no writing because it's gone from feeling like a joy to feeling like, like it's a job I got to do. Is it even going to pay off? Like, what does it matter? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, this anthology part 2 has been really good because there's nothing like a deadline, even like a soft one, to make you actually have to do the thing. So I'm writing again and I'm doing an hour every day and it hurts and it sucks, but it's feeling a little less sucky every time. And I'm reading back on what I've got and I'm thinking like, actually, this is pretty good. Like, yeah, you're not bad. I don't begrudge that person. Like, I think we were just very different people. We have very different tastes in books, as it turns out, I'd later learned. And it wasn't the right pairing, unfortunately. But maybe if there's like any lesson with this, it's, we say like we should share our writing with everyone and that all feedback is good feedback. Sometimes not. Sometimes, especially when it's in that like fragile, nascent, vulnerable stage, share your writing with people that get you and get it and get where it's going, because it could be great. I mean, Matan, you're reading James Joyce at the moment?
Yeah.
Notoriously difficult to read, right? Like, it's...
Okay, but I agree, but I'm having a guided tour with a professor for Irish literature. So
that helps.
kind of helps.
Yeah.
That helps.
And the Dubliners...
Paddy, I just wanted to jump in real quick and say that it's really important to remember that some of the best writers in the world have been rejected by editors.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the editor is a bad person or a bad reader. Some people don't like some things, and that's fine. The process of that editor not rising above themselves and giving you that kind of feedback, that does say something about them as an editor.
Maybe.
They could have
Maybe as a person, but that doesn't matter. The point is that, like, some people can butcher the best of stuff. You go into some of the most popular books on Goodreads, and usually the highest rated review is usually someone flaying the book. But yeah, listeners, if someone gives you bad feedback, like to that level that they have nothing good to say about your book and they're your editor, just get out of that situation, really. Just get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, an editor is trying to bring the best out of the story, you know what I mean? Like, so that should be what they're trying to... That should be how they're trying to shape their feedback and what they're trying to communicate to you. So to, I don't know how many words you sent them, but for them not to be able to signal out things and being like, these things could develop or these things could be shaped into a narrative, that's a shame. But I'm really sorry to hear that, because like, I know I had a similar thing kind of when I was a few years into writing, where I got feedback from someone totally derailed me from what I was working on. It took me a long time to get back into it. So it can really, really knock your self-confidence and stuff.
Yeah, it could be hard, but right now my attitude is, even if it is a steaming pile of crap, like it will be my steaming pile of crap, like, and I'll finish it
For
anyway.
my
So
taste, for my taste, you're an incredible writer. Okay, that's all
I get a
I
little
love the
tear
taste of your crap, Paddy.
coming.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
God damn it,
And
Ellie.
even on an organized, sorry, it's the schnapps. No, but even from an organizational level, so it's interesting having this third perspective as well now that so I'm in a position where I'm responsible for pairing emerging writers with mentors. And thankfully it doesn't happen too often. But recently our end of last year mentorship, a pairing we thought would go well didn't. And it didn't sound as like ill-willed as yours sounded, but it was just the taste didn't match. The writer I could see was going for a genre blend of crime and rom-com, which is a little unusual, but I could see that's what they were going for. And then but they were aiming for a commercial level though. So we're like, okay, cool. We see how that needs to be shaped to be a commercial product, where you're going with that. So we did pair them with someone who had quite a commercial lens, and we thought might be able to push them towards getting this interesting idea into something commercial. What this mentor ended up doing was pushing them much more towards crime, and just the feedback wasn't blending. The author did go away and try to do some notes and then submitted it back, and the mentor came back to us being like, look, I don't know what to do. I asked this writer to do all this stuff. They've sent it back to me. They haven't done any of it. And they're like, I literally don't know what I could say to them without hurting their feelings. So it was kind of, as an organization, that's when we step in and we go, great, all right, where the mentorship's, dissolved. We will take, and then I go speak to the author. They were a little mortified to hear that the mentor hadn't thought they had applied notes, where they thought they had actually done a really rigorous job of applying notes. Yeah, so they were quite devastated. Like, I've done all this work. So it was ultimately down to, it was just mismatched taste. What this person was looking for, this person wasn't doing, because that's not what they were aiming for. It was just completely missed signals. So as an organization, we go, right, cool, we're not abandoning you as a mentee. And I'm stepping into that role now, where I'm going to be offering feedback. And I kind of did a big sit down with this author being like, cool, how can we navigate this? What do you want it to be? And I eventually worked out this author they wanted to write a rom-com that just happened to have crime atmospherics.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a different structure. That's why your mentors tried to restructure it. That's why you've subconsciously resisted it, because you're not actually trying to write a crime. You want to write a rom-com. So with that new lens, with that new intention, I gave us some new tasks to go away and try. And I'm actually really excited for them to come back, and that mentorship's going to continue. So it's just, there's that extra step that there's a whole community of responsibility, I guess. So it's a shame that your mentorship fizzled and there wasn't an organizational safety net there to catch you, because it's just so easy for writers like that to be lost to the wind, to have all the talent in the world, to have all the drive in the world, and yet things, just because the structure of the industry can still go wrong.
It happens. We move on, and this is
Paddy,
me
would
moving
you-
on. So
Paddy, would you give it another chance? Not obviously not for this organization, but in general, would you take another shot at a
100%,
mentorship?
100%. There's so many. I mean, the idea of working with an established author who's already been there and done that and been through the purgatory that is writing a book, yeah, I would mine their brain so hard. So
I
yeah,
applaud your
absolutely.
courage.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
imagine finding a mentorship where it is actually a match. Imagine, because your book is good, Paddy. What I've heard is very good. So imagine finding someone that is excited about it is as excited about it as you are, and are willing to actually drive that forward with you. And they get it. They understand what you're trying to do. Because there are things I read that I don't particularly like, but it's still up to the author and what they're trying to do. And it's just a curiosity game of what are you trying to do here? But that's a big part of being an editor, is being curious with your author about what they're trying to do and then trying to help them do that. But it is a different level of editorship when I see what they're doing and I'm excited about what they're doing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, now we're writing this together. Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I am on board.
100%.
Like
The chemistry.
it's a different one.
It's like dating, right? You don't stop doing it just because you have like a bad experience.
Anyway,
well,
that's me.
it depends on
That's
the
right.
bad
Analogy.
experience, Paddy.
Or it depends how bad
There are
you know
tiers, you know.
You get back on the horse. That's what you do.
Get back on the dead horse and calm down.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Matan, I might throw you under the bus. Would you like to share with us your kind of wins
Sure.
and losses over the past 3 years?
I'll be quick. So yeah, I have moved back to the country from which I came, which is Israel. After I guess what was a 5 year long Australian odyssey. But in many ways, what I'm doing now feels like an odyssey. I've started learning in university, a Bachelor of English, and that has in some ways sent me into an exile away from specfic because suddenly I'm reading things that I've always admired from a distance, but I never really sunk my teeth into. Whether it's the origins of the novel in things like Robinson Crusoe or Don Quixote, or sometimes it's things like classical Greek stories that are considered like the bedrock of Western literature, or South African literature, British literature, native literature. And some of it is like canonical stuff, like, okay, James Joyce, Shakespeare. Some of it is just looking at the modern literature, like Jennifer Egan, people who have been writing in the last, what James is reading actually, Claire Keegan, right?
Like,
That yeah, that was published like 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I think. It's super, super new.
yeah.
And
I think they're making a film out of it as well.
yes, the guy
Yeah.
from Oppenheimer. Yeah, anyway.
Cillian Murphy.
So I feel like I'm just kind of studying, and I've been listening a lot. I've been analyzing a lot, and I've been analyzing the structure of a story, and I've been, reading the masters and trying to like think who am I as a writer? Because when you read so widely, sometimes you wonder like, oh, I want to do a bit of this, I want to do a bit of that. But I think it hasn't really changed who I am as a writer. It maybe, I don't know, rounded out my character as a writer. I think I look at things a bit more differently. But before you guys showed up, by the way, to the open genre, I felt like I'm the only one writing fantasy over there. Most of it was memoirs and like literary fiction, and I always felt like the odd duck out. That's probably not a verse ever. Anyway, but then you guys kind of trickled in, and suddenly it felt like we were kind of taking over with our spec fic, which was fun for a while. Because of university, I have produced a lot of words that were academic. I've been writing papers all the time. I haven't really had the time to write as much as I want, and because I'm a broke student, I had to get a second job as an editor, which honestly, I think that was advice from Phoenix. It was one of the best decisions I've made because it allowed me to get. Phoenix gave me a whole document about do's and don'ts and to the point of how much you should ask for. And that was
That's good.
immensely helpful. And it was nice because I was earning that extra money, but I felt like I'm working on my craft. I wasn't getting a shift as a bartender on the weekends, even though that would have been easier and would have paid better. But I felt like I'm still like I'm not being a writer full time in the way I would have liked to be, but I'm working on my grammar as an English teacher. I'm working on my writing skills as a student of English literature, and I'm working on my editing skills as a proofreader and as an editor. I keep having that thought in mind that eventually I will go back to the point where writing is a much bigger part of my life, and I hope I'll be better equipped for it. And so my mindset, even though absolution is still not done, even though I'm not writing nearly as many of the ideas that pop into my head as I would have liked to, I have that peace of mind knowing that I am in the direction I want to go. Eventually, I'm going to get there. Few years ago, I picked up letters from J.R. Tolkien. It's a collection of his letters. And that's something even he discusses, how for many years he just didn't have the time to write because he was teaching, because he was raising his kids. So he maybe came to it later than he would have liked, but everything's for the best. And going back to what Paddy said, the newer Mythic is such an amazing thing for me. That soft but firm deadline, that idea that you guys are waiting for it, and that you guys, like, even though my writing muscles are maybe not as firm as they used to be, that it will be a good, safe process.
Yes.
So that's super exciting for me.
Yes.
Such a good teacher, Matan.
Yeah. I know. You speak in these like fully formed sentences. It's so nice. It's so good. Let's get that guy on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to toss it over to Phoenix. Tell us about your past 3 years.
So when I remember where I was when we recorded the first episode, I was in Pottsville, Australia.
That's
I
right.
love that little place. Yeah, you were
I
in that
visited you
place at one
there,
point.
yeah.
You came up. Yeah. Since then, my Jose, my wife and I, we left. We went to the States for a bit, and then we were in Chile for a bit, and then we moved to Spain. So we were jumping all over the place. I'm now in Barcelona. Been here for a year and a half. And yeah, my biggest wins, the nomination for the Aurealis Award was that's one of my proudest things for the last anthology, because especially because I got started in literature in Australia, to kind of have recognition in Australia as like how they phrase it, it's like the who's who of Australian like spec fic literature. I was like, oh, to be kind of one of the who's who of Australian spec
Yeah.
fic was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow, like, because I don't know, I got started over there, and to be recognized by the country, that meant so much. That meant a lot to me. So that was a big one. I'm very proud of how far my editing business has grown, how far it's gone. Back when we started the podcast, I was just starting out. I was doing like very small editing jobs for very, very little money, just trying to build a name. And now I'm charging industry rates, and people are very all about what I'm saying. People want to hear what I have to say, which feels really good. I've given 2 talks at a national editing conference, which is pretty huge. Like it's pretty wild, because some of the other people giving talks at these things are like, there was a guy that gave a talk that works for Webster's dictionary as like part of the person that literally helps fundamentally create and edit the language we speak, and like what words mean and what like stuff like that. And I'm like, holy shit. One of the people representing was also the Chicago Manual of Style. So like literally
wow.
the fundamental spec fic editing Bible that we
you're
go
up there
by,
with
especially
royalty,
in the
man.
US. I was like, all right, and then come listen to me. Like, that was
awesome.
cool. But I've established a good relationship with them. The woman, Kristen Shoup, call out. She does an excellent job organizing, and like I've really loved working with her, and now it's to the point where she's like, yeah, look forward to working with you again, and like we have a really nice relationship, which is it's been really nice. And so Ali, you called out that you've experienced a moment of burnout. I'm in a fundamental moment of burnout, but it's burnout on a level where I find myself in a space of really like deep reflection of like, who am I right now? What do I want? And like, what am I trying to do? And I approach it with like a level of just like patience and space. I know it's going to organize itself in some manner, and there's no need to try to force an answer out of myself. But it is like it shakes the foundations a little bit. Like I'm trying to cling onto the things that I normally drive me, normally get me excited, and they're not giving me the same thing. And normally that would, not normally, like it doesn't scare me. It's just like, oh, okay, it feels different now. I'll just let it feel different, and that's okay. Part of that burnout was the fact that, so I'm on top of a writer, language as a thing just interests me in general. So I'm a casual linguist as well. I speak Spanish pretty fluently at this point, and Italian conversationally. And I love just exploring languages and how they work and stuff like that. But like living in full Spanish immersion, just like my brain, like it was a lot for a while, and it's still a process. But that was part of the burnout of just like I just need to let my mind breathe a little bit. So it's gonna come back, but it's in a little a bit of a it's My drive is sleeping a little bit, but it feels nice. But it's been a good 3 years, and I'm very excited for what's coming next because I feel good about it, and I do feel that things are coming, things are growing.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, thank you for sharing
I
that.
got rejected. I
Ah,
got rejected,
good.
positively rejected by the British Society Fantasy Society. Um, that was a nice one. They read one of my works out of a particularly large slush pile, and they wanted to publish it. They're like, well, they didn't want to. They said like it actually got to the editor. The editor emailed me. I was like, we're reading this. We like it.
That's still a massive
And I
one.
was like,
That's so good.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't publish it, but they were like, at this level, any of these could have been published. It just came down to taste at the end. And I was like, I'll take it, but bummer, but
Thank
still a huge compliment.
Yep.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Very
That is
cool.
good.
Mhm.
That's a good feeling.
Amazing.
Mm.
I will throw it over to Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of years. I think I was still living in Ashfield when we did this. So I'm still in the same place physically. And I was building my guitar school business, which is now thriving, which is great. But in terms of literary stuff, I think I was writing my novel Dawn House when I had started. I think I was maybe halfway through, if knowledge serves me.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And that was going well. And I finished that at some point. My grasp on the temporal is pretty tenuous at best. So this is going to be more just impressionistic than they're specific on what happened when. But yeah, I finished that, which was really exciting. It's not published. It is not even really complete. It's very much first draft wise. But I decided to set that down for a little bit. I probably the thing that I'm most proud of in terms of literary stuff was being published, and I say this literally every episode, being published in the fiction edition of the Big Issue, which was basically it gets released once a year. For anyone who doesn't know, it gets released once a year in Australia. It is technically the biggest fiction magazine in Australia. There was a slush pile, an entry like thing of 500 sort of entries, and I think only 9 of those there were 12, but 3 of them were commissioned, and only 9 of those were selected, and one of them was mine. So that was really exciting. I'm really proud of that story. There was another one just recently, actually for Westwards that I submitted something to. Ali didn't actually get a chance to read it, so I know that she didn't help me out on that. It's funny because
It got through on its own merits.
No,
I was going to
nepotism.
ask.
No, I'll explain. I submitted
wasn't
it,
gonna
and
ask.
then I heard back from her boss Michael and was like, "Hey, yeah, this is good. We like it." But I'd got the email like days before. They were like, "Oh, we needed this in by this date. Can you go and give us back to that?" And then I texted Ali frantically, being like, "Oh, are they still going to accept it?" And she's like, "I don't know, man. I was on the B team who read the stuff that we were like, well, maybe we'll put this in." So she didn't even get to see it. It was already.
Yeah, I read the crap bottom of the slush pile. If it never came to me, that's because it got green lit above me. So that was all you.
Yeah, well, So that was nice. That was nice to get a little bit of that. That was just this year actually, which was pretty nice. And I let me see. And I've written like a couple of little bits of other books and things. I've got maybe 25 words through, 25,000 words.
Really
through.
good short stories, man. Some of your short stories have been great. They're actually my favorite thing of yours is
Thanks.
short story writing. It's really good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
Do
that.
more of that.
I like
Yeah.
the scary ones,
Just
Alex.
write more.
Oh yeah, which you like the scary
I
one?
like the
Oh,
one
shoot,
about the
I
guy
published-
that needs to get a glass of water.
Yeah. It's just such a.
Does he need to pee or does he need a glass
He
of
needs
water?
to pee. He needs to go to the
Yeah, that
toilet.
was
Yeah,
good.
he needs to go
I love
downstairs
that
to the
one.
toilet and do that. So that reminds me that I self-published a book during that time, a collection of short stories, which I meant to bring to hold up so I could show you, but I don't have it. That was pretty cool, just being able to do that. It's got a few reviews and stuff on Amazon. That one's called The Golden Hour by A.R. Eldridge, if anyone wants to have a look. So yeah, that was cool. And that's pretty much the wins. In terms of the harsher stuff, I actually did I was a judge for an awards sort of ceremony thing, and that I just realized it wasn't any fault of the organization themselves. They did really good work, but I realized I am not built to read a bunch of stuff. Like it really killed my desire to like read stuff, and then consequently my desire to write. So yeah, that was a good 2/3 of a year where I was kind of out of commission, and that felt real bad. But that's all right. You live and learn. So yeah, and now I'm back on it to wrap up. Basically, I've been reading a lot of stuff and realized like I'm kind of back to where I started in terms of like, hey, I want to read like horror stuff, because I realized most of what I like to read is that there's this very specific narrative structure that I really get a kick out of, and so just really dialing it into that and trying to write to that tone and flavor and structure, because it's very technical, like just how to build that thing there. I've been reading a lot of really good works, and yeah, I'm currently writing another book in sort of the horror genre that's up to about 30,000 words, and it's going good. And I just have to keep reminding myself that I really like the idea, and as long as I like the idea, if I don't feel like doing it, or if I don't feel like writing right now, that's okay, because it's a good idea and I can just keep going on it.
It's a good idea.
Thank you. So that's a big, long, rambly, sort of way of saying what I've done so far.
No, that was such a good celebration of your wins. Both you and Phoenix did a really good job of celebrating your wins, and it made me reflect on how I didn't do that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is almost a thing for the listeners as well, if they're people like me, and I imagine all of us to a degree, where we do diminish our wins. And I think I have a very particular trait of, I have a clear set of goals for my career, and then the moment I achieve a goal, I don't really let myself celebrate it. I just go, cool, it's done. I erase it off the task list, and then I immediately start thinking about the next one. Like, I didn't even mention that I won an Orgy and I got an agent in these past 3 years.
Yeah, those are big, significant goals.
Massive.
They're big career writer goals, and I didn't even think to really be like, instead I just focused on all the things that hadn't happened for me yet, and that in its own way is quite toxic. So yeah, and even the way that I'm kind of diminishing that it looks like The Swallow will be a real physical book next year, and I'm still like, I don't want to celebrate that. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, I guess that comes back to I think it is healthy and important for writers to be able to celebrate our wins and remind ourselves why we do this. This theme is emerging of longevity and how we keep at this, even though it does sometimes treat us poorly and it is hard, and kind of the things we do to be able to sustain it, because we are all going to experience burnout. 3 of us have admitted to currently experiencing burnout, so kind of how. So I'll ask James to tell us about his 3 years, and then we'll wrap up the podcast, where I did just want to throw out that question to all of you to like how do you sustain yourself. But yeah, James, first tell us about your 3 years and how you've gone.
Yeah, I'll also be brief. It's a bit anticlimactic. Similar to Matan, I moved home. I moved back to Ireland after many years in Australia, and yeah, I guess I've just been a lot of turmoil. Some good things and some bad things. Within that, I moved home because I'd gotten bad news about my father's health, and part of he was eventually diagnosed with PSP, which is progressive supranuclear palsy. And part of that was that it affected his eyesight. So it was a little bit bittersweet that happened around the same time as the book came out, because my dad had always been such a big supporter, and it really backed me in terms of writing and continuing to pursue it. So it was just a little bit of a shame that he wasn't able to read the book when it came out, because he loves reading, like he reads all the time. So one huge win over the years was having the audiobook get finished. And Nate Goddard did such a great job doing Cooling Engines, and I was just so appreciative of how he did the story, and it was really lovely to be able to sit down and listen to the audiobook through with my dad, which is a massive it was just a really nice win, and a wonderful opportunity that I was really thankful for. And yeah, so over the years, I guess I kind of had 2 kind of major writing projects that I was trying to push ahead with. One that I was working on, this was in 2022, that kind of dropped off in 2023. And then another one that I tried to pick up kind of earlier this year. And I guess both of them just kind of ran out of steam. And I kind of went back and looked at them and was kind of like, oh, I really don't like where that's going, and I'm not really that into it. So both of them kind of hit me kind of hard, because I guess I was feeling like I can't really push forward with stuff. So that was kind of two losses that kind of hit me quite hard. But then also in earlier this year, I finished a story called The Duelist, kind of a 20k novella. That was really happy.
I was hoping you would mention
Paddy
that.
were reacting to what you said. We're like, what do you mean? We read something from start to finish.
I was telling my girlfriend about The Duelist just yesterday. I think about this story at least like once a week, once a fortnight. It's so good, James.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm really happy.
I mean, the protagonist is kind of a dick, but other than that,
but like deliberate. Like it's not like
he's an interesting asshole. But
yes, he is.
Yes, he is. So yeah, no, I was really happy with that. So it kind of, it balances it out. You kind of have one where you're like, oh, this isn't going great, but then you have another one that's, when you pick it up, you can be pretty happy with it. So yes, I think I think those were two major wins, was the audiobook and the novella. And I'm trying to decide at the moment now what to do with the novella, whether to go down a self-publishing route or try to find a publisher for it. And yeah, generally I've just looking around for more kind of writing competitions to enter, and I suppose trying to refocus on what is it that like really makes me motivated to write a story and to kind of follow a story through to the end. And I suppose try to find the right length, because I find if I approach those bigger projects, I haven't found the thing yet to give me the steam to go all the way through it. So I'm trying to find the right length of story to work on at the moment, somewhere above 20k, probably below 40k at the moment, till I figure out what it is that I really want to write about. So having this project has been really having the volume 2 to work on has been really good, because like everyone else has said, having that deadline and having something to make you come back and work on it again and again has had that it forces you to go through that cycle of, oh, this is working, I feel really good about it, and then like, oh, this is crap, I don't like it at all, and you have to come back and work on it again, say, oh, now I really like it again. Keep pushing through. So yeah, it's been really good.
Just imagine us in our 60s doing the new Mythic 12 or something.
Great.
Yes.
I'm all about that. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I love that.
The relatively new Mythic.
the really
contemporary Mythic.
But I wanted to make a point of that. I feel like if we had said 3 years ago that we're going to like aim to be here in 3 years' time, I don't know if I would have quite believed it. I would have liked to have believed it, but I don't know if I like intrinsically would have.
I'm sure we've all been part of like group projects that like they've got great ideas and it seems like a good idea and it just fizzles out.
Yeah,
so that's why I poured myself a schnapps, because it was worth toasting that we had made it. And that is impressive. We're all still here and we're all still going in our own way. There was just this general sense that we've evolved to keep going and pursuing what we love, and we're still doing it. So this is a group question, but if anyone wanted to chime in, and if there is any key thing or anything that you lean on that you think has helped you to keep going over these 3 years? Are you wise enough and articulate enough to share that with us?
Honestly, so cheesy. You guys. Having this group has been so, for my productivity, like during COVID, people to talk to, when I was living in New Zealand, you guys were always on. Matan, I can see the little heart react, heart back, buddy.
Yes.
But like,
I too will heart react.
I speak to you guys every day on, on Facebook Messenger.
3D.
And it's so positive. It's such a good thing. I'm so glad that I met all of you and that we formed Precipice Fiction, because it's been in every way a positive thing. Like, we've all grown so much as writers. We've built this beautiful network of friends. We have a goddamn business. This is an actual ABN listed business.
We have debts,
Yeah, well, yes.
No, we are paid off.
Yeah, we're
We
paid
have
off.
financial responsibility.
And it keeps me writing. Honestly, this is the biggest thing that keeps me writing. So,
yeah. I would say on another note, I mean, when I think about it, if I'm like, because I remember starting to want to write at 27. I remember very specifically finding a book. It was Skeleton Crew by Stephen King, reading through it, and it's like, this is too good not to start doing this. Like, this is great. And I still have that book. But thinking about it and thinking if we didn't have this group, or even a group, I'm not sure. It's hard to think of if either, I wouldn't have continued at all, or at least I would be in a very much less. I feel like my craft would be a lot worse at the very least, because I wouldn't have that sounding board to bounce off. I think that is like a legitimate thing that like my writing would be here when it is now here. On another practical sort of note, I'd also say keep reading, and specifically keep reading the things that you want to write as you're writing it. That's been a huge help to me. Really big thing. Specifically reading the same stuff, because if you read something that's like off the wall, then you'll be like, oh, I want to do a bit of crime fiction in this. And it's like, oh, maybe just stick to the thing you've got. So so that's big. And then also I think setting a time for yourself to, if you're the sort of person who, can easily get distracted and just not find time to do stuff, set a time to do your writing. Like I forget who said it, but someone said, writer's right, and I think that's the biggest thing. If you're going to be a writer, you have to write, and you have to create space for yourself to write.
I want to
Well said.
I want to jump on what, first of all, I definitely agree with Alex. Reading is such a huge part. There are a few things that light the fire in me as much as reading a book I really enjoy, of the kind that I want to write. But I really want to go back to also what Paddy said. And it's not just that we like each other. I think that, I was part of a digital fiction workshop in university, and one of the rules was that the author is not allowed to speak until every single member of the workshop has finished giving feedback. You have to stay silent. And when it is your time to talk, you're not allowed to address their feedback. You're only allowed to ask them questions. Now, that's not to say that you cannot address people's feedback, but I think the point of that exercise was that you got to learn to listen, and the filtering should happen in your head. Listen respectfully, the filtering of what's good for me and what isn't. And of course, there's going to be that filtering. No one's feedback is perfect. But with this group, I feel like we kind of hit the spot in which the people here are really respectful. They're really knowledgeable, which I think is a big part of why we respect each other so much. And we just know how to take it and give it in a way that feels constructive and kind. And that's a big part of it. And I agree with Alex that reading is super important, but also sometimes I walk out of a podcast and I'm like, God, I'm itching to write. And I just hope that happens to some of the listeners too.
I'll also just join this pile and say that the this group with it's a big you all are my community essentially in the writing world. And community is just such like a big thing to be able to share, have someone that I regularly share the interest with, where even I don't know, it's something that oh wow, my mind fully flipped into Spanish. No,
nerds with
I couldn't think
similar
of the word.
interests.
Yeah, but it's something that is permanent and kind of holds the space even when I'm not holding the writing space for myself. This kind of is a layer of bedrock that is there, and it's something that mentally sticks in my mind as just something that kind of holds that flag for me even when I feel like I need to put my flag down for a moment. And being able to have that safety in like just not feeling like I'm holding it all by myself is such a big thing. I actually remember when the group first formed, it was such a cool moment for me because I'm a very driven individual in this. And like even before I joined this group, and even before I had any kind of name for myself as a writer at all, like absolutely nothing, I created projects for myself. I created things for myself, I created my career as a writer before I even really had one. Like I was like, I'm just going to do this project. I'm going to get people involved. I'm going to do this stuff. But I was the driving force behind it, and I learned a lot from it, and I built myself up from that. And then I remember when I joined all of you, it was suddenly, I felt like everyone was bringing that same thing everyone was bringing that same drive, and everyone had built skills, and everyone like had that. And suddenly I felt so much more, it felt so powerful. I was just like, oh, this is so great because one, I'm not the only cylinder firing, as well as like all of you are bringing things that I don't have skills in
Yeah.
necessarily and stuff like that. So it felt like a real like stronger together thing, like fully equally stronger together as a thing. And I was just like, oh, hell yeah, here we like this feels so good.
Yeah, amen.
That
Kind of
is
like
worth
a
noting.
Megazord.
Yeah.
Like a
What that is.
Megazord.
Like a
Megatron.
Megazord.
No, what am I?
Like-
What's the bot I'm trying to think of?
Voltron.
Optimus
Voltron.
Prime.
I'm
Yeah,
like, it's some kind of
Voltron.
Gundam. Anyway, screaming
I'm,
about
I'm left leg.
Some
Okay,
kind of
I'm taking left leg.
No, but you're right. Other groups, I watched rise and fall on the strength of the person who's carrying it burns out and no one else steps in to carry it. While the podcast has demonstrated that when someone needs to disappear for a month, because they're like, literally this month, I have no time to join a podcast, the podcast carries on. Because everyone else
Self-sustaining.
steps in to make it happen, and there's just kind of been such a solid silent agreement that we're gonna make that work. And again, bringing it back to the fact that we were all willing to get up and carve out silly hours to make this 6 of us episode work is a testament to that. So I might wrap up the episode there. We're all gonna have a team meeting though right now. I think that's interesting for the listeners to hear that we're going to stick around for another couple of minutes.
Record the meeting and put it out as
Yeah, we will.
bonus content.
Everyone can just get our boring actual
You want to hear the
meeting.
meeting?
For our Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did find one quote on longevity by Olita Adams that I thought I would share. Learn your craft well, take care of your own business. Success is fleeting for most, but longevity lies in a quality of craft with integrity. Oh, and don't take yourself too seriously.
Very nice.
Amen.
Very good.
All right, thank you for listening, everyone. This has been 100 episodes of Pros and Cons. And who knows how many more episodes there will be, but wouldn't it be exciting to put into the universe that we'll be doing in another 3 years' time, our 200th episode?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're listening to Pros and Cons, a Precipice Fiction podcast.